All right, today we're diving into a concept that is, and I'm not exaggerating here, the absolute foundation of any business: cost price. Now, it might sound a little dry, but trust me, understanding the economic logic behind it is the key to unlocking how a business actually works, how it makes money, and how it survives. So let's get into it.
You know, everything in business, and I mean everything, really boils down to this one simple-sounding question. But the answer? Well, that's often way more complex and way more revealing than you'd ever guess. Getting this number right is the whole ball game.
Because, you see, answering that question isn't just some accounting chore. It's about getting a deep understanding of the engine that drives your entire company. And the key that unlocks that answer is a concept we call cost price.
So what is it exactly? Well, here's the formal definition. Cost price is basically the grand total of every single expense you have to pay to create your product and get it into a customer's hands. But think of it less like a math problem and more like a vital sign. It tells you whether a business is healthy or if it's in serious trouble.
Okay, so what actually goes into this number? Let's start peeling back the layers and see what it's really made of.
We can pretty much sort everything into three main buckets. First up, you've got your direct material costs. This is the actual physical stuff your product is made of. You know, the flour if you're a baker, the fabric if you're making clothes. Second, direct labor. That's the paycheck for the people who are physically putting the product together, like a chef or a factory worker. And third, there's everything else you need for production. Think factory rent, machine maintenance, the electricity bill. This last bucket is what we call overhead.
Now this is where things get really interesting. This is where understanding cost price goes from being an accounting task to a strategic superpower. Because you see, not all costs behave in the same way. We need to split them into two very different, very important categories.
And here they are: variable costs and fixed costs. This chart really tells the whole story. On one side, you have variable costs. They move up and down with your production level. The more you make, the more you spend. It's a direct relationship. On the other side, you have fixed costs. These are your rock. They stay the same whether you make one thing or 1,000 things.
Let's make this super clear with a few examples. The raw materials and the packaging for your product, totally variable. A sales commission you pay only when you make a sale, also variable. But what about the rent for your warehouse, the salary for your CEO, your accountant's monthly fee? Those are fixed. You're paying them every single month, no matter how much you sell. They're the cost of just keeping the lights on.
So here's a really simple test you can use for any expense you're looking at. Just ask yourself this one question. If I make and sell more of my product, will the total I spend on this specific thing go up? If the answer is yes, it's a variable cost. If the answer is no, it's a fixed cost. It's a surprisingly simple way to cut through the confusion.
Let's just watch this play out. Let's say the variable cost to produce just one of your products, so materials, some labor, packaging, is $90. Simple enough, right? So what happens when we start to scale? Well, if you produce 100 of them, your total variable costs multiply perfectly. You're now spending $9,000. And if you ramp that all the way up to 1,000 units, yep, you guessed it, $90,000. The cost for each unit stays the same, but the total you spend grows in a straight line with your volume. The key takeaway? If you have zero production, you have zero variable costs.
But of course, the real world is never quite that clean. There are also mixed costs that have a little bit of both. Your electricity bill is the perfect example. You probably have a fixed base fee you pay every month just to be connected to the grid. But then, the more you run your machines, the more electricity you use, and the higher the variable part of the bill gets. So why on earth did we just spend all that time carefully separating these costs? Because this distinction is one of the most powerful strategic tools a business leader can have. This is where the magic really happens.
And this simple formula right here is why it all matters. When you take the price you sell one item for and subtract the variable costs of making just that one item, you get something called the contribution margin. Now, this isn't your profit, not yet. It's the cash each sale contributes toward paying off all those big fixed costs like rent and salaries.
And knowing that margin number is absolutely critical. It lets you calculate your exact break-even point, the precise number of units you have to sell just to cover your fixed costs. Every single sale you make after that point is pure profit. It's why software companies are so valuable. Their variable costs are close to zero, so almost every new sale goes straight to the bottom line.
And once you really grasp this logic, it leads you to a really powerful, really modern business strategy, one that's all about reducing your financial risk.
You see, the smartest companies today are constantly trying to turn their fixed costs into variable ones. Think about it. Instead of buying a factory, a massive fixed cost, they'll use a contract manufacturer and just pay per unit they produce. Instead of hiring a huge in-house staff, they'll outsource functions. This lowers their risk dramatically because they're only paying for these things when they're actually making sales.
So in the end, that's the best way to think about your cost structure. It's the economic map of your business. It shows you the terrain, it highlights where the dangers are, and it reveals the clearest and safest path to profitability. If you don't have this map, you are flying completely blind.
And I want to leave you with this final thought, which I think is so important. Businesses usually don't fail because there aren't enough customers. They fail because they don't truly understand the economics of serving the customers they already have. So the question we should all be asking isn't just what do we sell, but do we truly understand the map of what it costs?